How much sleep do you get a night? You know, sometimes I don't get a lot of sleep. I have two jobs, you know, if I want to spend time with my boyfriend or maybe study. And I just always thought that work was a bit more important. And I'm sure you've heard, you know, not getting enough sleep every night will actually cause you to have, you know, weight control issues, or, you know, it can mess up your immune system, or, you know, just things like that where you know you should be getting a lot of sleep. Now, one interesting fact that I found, there's this article in Scientific America, and it actually explains that lack of sleep can be linked directly to psychiatric disorders. Here in the article it says this. In fact, psychologist Matthew Walker of the University of California, Berkeley, says that almost all psychiatric disorders show some problems with sleep. But he says that scientists previously believed that psychiatric problems trigger the sleep issues. New research from his lab, however, suggests the reverse is the case. That is, a lack of shut-eye is causing some psychological disturbances. In this study, there were a group of people who had 35 hours of no sleep whatsoever. And they basically put them on MRI machines to study the brain activity. And what they did is they showed several photos of increasingly disturbed photos. Maybe it began with like a basket on the table, and it kind of escalated into maybe somebody getting shot or somebody dying. And they actually noticed that there was 5 times more brain activity with those who were sleep deprived as compared to those who had a full night's sleep. Here's another section of the article that I found interesting. But when the scenes became more gruesome, the amygdala of the sleep-deprived participants kicked up, showing 60% more activity relative to the normal population's response. In addition, the researchers noticed that more than 5 times more neurons in the area were transmitting impulses in the sleep-deprived brains. Walker described the heightened emotional response in the wary as profound, noting, "We've never seen a magnitude of increase between two groups that big in any of our studies before." Now, what this guy is saying is the magnitude of increase between the brain activity for those who are sleep deprived as compared to those who had a full night's sleep. Now, they do psychiatric studies, right? So they're looking at somebody who's depressed as compared to somebody who isn't, or somebody who is diagnosed with ADHD as compared to somebody who is not. And the amount of the dramatic change or the difference between these two groups, they actually found a higher increase in the sleep deprived in those who had a full night's sleep as compared to, let's say, somebody was diagnosed with a mental illness like, you know, bipolar or even depression. I wanted to see what your experience with sleep deprivation was, because I know when I don't get a lot of sleep, I'm easily tired, irritated, just don't want to deal with anything, and easily overwhelmed. And actually, it's kind of funny. One day I was up for, I think it was 30 or 35 hours with no sleep, living off of caffeine, and I just started seeing things like hallucinating out of the corner of my eye, and it was kind of weird. But the funny thing is, you know, being easily, you know, emotional or, you know, very irritated or worn out, those are symptoms of depression. Now, this was a research done at a university. They hooked him up to machines, you know, and it's very scientifically oriented to study the brain activity. But I personally don't know how impressed I am with it, because interrogators, they've known for years that if you deprive somebody of sleep, you know, it can cause psychological disturbances. And if you do it long enough, it can cause a psychotic break. So it's been known for a while that sleep deprivation can be torture. I mean, you just make it so the person doesn't have enough sleep or whatever, don't let them get any sleep, and it's a form of torture, even in the CIA manual, right? And it's actually been noted, apparently, that the body or the person needs to dream, right? So you need to sleep at night, at least 8 hours or 7 hours, whatever. And if you don't have the ability to dream, you actually start dreaming while you're awake, right? Hallucinations, whatever. And I just wanted to read you this that I found was interesting. Nicole Bieski, a spokeswoman for Amnesty International, has stated, at the very least, sleep deprivation is cruel, inhumane, and degrading. If used for prolonged periods of time, it is torture. So let's say you get a couple of hours of missing sleep, right? You get 6 hours of sleep. You're feeling tired, irritated, very easily overwhelmed, and, you show symptoms of depression. Well, let's say you get a whole lot of lack of sleep, right? Not sleeping for days. And it can actually cause some serious problems like a psychotic break or even symptoms of schizophrenia. I was talking to a friend of mine, she's a doctor, and she was talking to me about some drugs. They can actually interfere with REM sleep or deep sleep, where you're actually able to have dreams. And, deep sleep is very necessary because, you can have 8 hours of sleep, but if you don't have that REM sleep, you're not going to feel rested. And we're actually talking about antidepressants. Some antidepressants, you take them, and it will interfere with the person's ability to go into REM sleep or deep sleep. And because they have that adverse reaction, they will actually start dreaming while they're awake. They start hallucinating. So the person's basically going nuts. Here's something I found. It's from Robert Stickgold. He's an associate professor of psychiatry at Harvard. And he says there seems to be a causal relationship between impaired sleep and some of the psychiatric symptomatology and disorders that we're seeing. Right? So this is a pretty big deal. He's saying there's a causal relationship between psychiatric disorders and not getting enough sleep. So let's say you're not having a lot of sleep for a while and you're feeling depressed or you have bipolar symptoms and you get an antidepressant. Well, that's not really going to handle the problem, which is you need more sleep. So if you're not getting a lot of sleep and you're sleep deprived, that's what torturers do. You are potentially torturing your body, and you're actually literally predisposing yourself to have psychiatric problems. Now, if you are sleep deprived and you're not getting enough hours of sleep, you actually can go on the internet or, search in Google, and you can find a lot of ways to handle your sleep. Like for me, for example, when I'm not getting a lot of sleep, I can exercise and I can fall into sleep a lot faster if I exercise, pretty regularly. So if you just do that way, you can take care of your body, which is what everybody needs to do, and just